10 signs you're an INFJ, the world's rarest personality type. Not medium rare, rare. Stick around to the end of the video to learn about how rare the INFJ type really is. So INFJ, it stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. If you want an explanation of what the 4 letters mean in 4 minutes, check out this video right here. Let's just jump right into the 10 signs that you're an INFJ. First up, you prefer to narrow things down rather than gather more information. The way I like to imagine it is that INFJs have a mind that works like a funnel. And we're focusing on this part of the funnel right here, the small end. INFJs want to cut down the world into as simple of a framework as possible. So it's like everything that exists in the world can be boiled down into a few simple principles. It's like we can put everything in the world into this broad end of the funnel, but it's always going to come out into this super narrow understanding. As such, INFJs are not typically on the lookout for new things to add to the funnel. The new things kind of scare INFJs a little bit. This makes INFJs very routine oriented, kind of wanting to do the same thing and stick with what they know. So like when the iPhone updates its operating system, an INFJ might have a brief panic attack. Number 2, you make decisions based on value rather than logic. This is the F part of INFJ. It stands for feeling, and it's not so much feeling like emotion as it is value. What's good and bad? What do people like and not like? What value do people place on something? This is opposed to making decisions logically, which doesn't care what people like or how people feel about something, but rather, is this going to work and get results? The INFJs prefer to make decisions based more on what people value, what people think is good, rather than what just works. So if you're looking to buy a toaster online, the INFJ will be more influenced, theoretically, by reviews saying, this is the best toaster out there, everyone loves it, as opposed to reviews that say, this toaster makes toast without any issues, it gets the job done. Number 3, you might feel like you need permission to follow your own inner compass. This one might hurt a little, but the truth is INFJs sometimes have a hard time following their own inner compass. Certainly, INFJs have a strong vision for how they see the world, but when it comes to making decisions, they can feel like they need permission from others to do what they want to do. This goes back to the feeling I was talking about in the last point. INFJs have a specific type of feeling which is concerned with how do other people feel as opposed to how do I feel. And INFJs need that external confirmation from others before they feel good about doing what they wanted to do anyway. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel, but before you do it, you might start asking a bunch of people if they think that's a good idea. Oh, do they seem excited when you tell them? Or are they more like, oh, okay. If you do that a lot, trying to get feedback for what you want to do anyway, might be an INFJ thing. Number 4, sometimes you don't know who you really are. This is related to that last point because INFJs are a little disconnected from their inner compass. Now on the bright side of that, INFJs are focused on how they need to act around other people in order to put everyone at ease or to fit in. Sometimes INFJs are called social chameleons because of their understanding of social dynamics and how to shapeshift in order to get along with others. The problem is that they might look in the mirror and be like, who am I? Really? You might have different groups of people in your life and find yourself acting different depending on who you're around, like very different. That's something INFJs tend to do without even realizing it. All right, we're getting deep in the signs you're an INFJ, but before we continue, I want to tell you really quick about this video sponsor, BetterHelp. If you're feeling down, maybe you're anxious or going through a difficult time, BetterHelp is a convenient and cost-effective alternative to traditional in-person talk therapy. Once you sign up, BetterHelp matches you with a licensed therapist within 24 hours. You can have appointments over phone call or video chat on your phone, tablet, or desktop. There is even an option to text your therapist. Now look, I know some people get worried about using a service like this because they want to make sure they're matched with a real, legitimate therapist. I get that. So I want to assure you, BetterHelp has a rigorous vetting process so that only certified, licensed therapists with at least a master's degree in their field are accepted. Plans start at $65 a week, and if you use my link, betterhelp.com/frankjames, you can get 10% off your first month. Your mental health is something that you should take seriously, and if you think BetterHelp could be right for you, go to my link, betterhelp.com/frankjames for 10% off. Okay, sponsorship over. Let's stop briefly to support this channel and see if YouTube would like to show a commercial. Thanks for sitting through that. Make sure if you're enjoying this video, you hit the like button. Okay, what are we on? Number 5, you often overplan. INFJs are not very spontaneous. That comes from generally the J part of their personality type. I've used this joke before, but I'll say it again because apparently I'm turning into my father. If I, as an INFJ, am going to be spontaneous, it's really just like, I can be spontaneous if I've planned for it. Oh yes, here are 2 options I've narrowed it down to, and I can spontaneously pick one of them. INFJs really like to plan. They will overplan. Even something simple like going to Chipotle. Like, I gotta know, what am I gonna get? What are the options? I can't just make up my mind on the fly. White rice, brown rice, black bean, pinto bean. How long will the line be? What is the parking situation going to be like? They overplan because they don't want to deal with the details in the moment. That is an INFJ's biggest weakness. Concrete details in the here and now. So INFJs overplan ahead of time to try to avoid it. I guess you always have to plan ahead of time. You can't plan afterwards, so it's a little redundant. Number 6, you're a natural teacher. Now wait a second, you might say, Frank, I would never get up in front of a class and teach. So this doesn't necessarily mean a formal teacher, but INFJs are natural communicators. Have you ever found that as soon as you learn something and have just kind of barely gotten the hang of it, you want to start teaching it to everyone else? Or maybe it's like you have things that you figured out about life in general. It might not be anything huge, but you slip in these little pearls of wisdom in your interactions with others. There's just something about INFJs where they feel the need to communicate the stuff they have processed about the world around them. Number 7, you are good at guessing what will happen. This is a big one, okay? And there's a lot of misunderstanding about all this. Some people like to say INFJs can predict the future, and they can. Nostradamus also predicted the future. He wasn't really right about anything though. Or was he? I've probably made that joke in another video. Am I slipping? So INFJs are intuitive. That means they are focused on detecting patterns. They are trying to guess at the connections between things. And what comes with that is guessing at what will happen next. We see a situation happening right now. How do we think it will unfold? And because INFJs are super intuitive, they've been doing it since they were a kid. It's just how they operate. So theoretically, having been guessing at what will happen in the future their whole lives, they may be right a lot of the time. But it's not magic, it's not psychic or spiritual, it's just detecting a pattern, sometimes without the person even realizing they're doing it. Like if you've got a friend and she has this boyfriend and you're like, I'm not sure why, but I can just tell they're gonna break up, and then they do! That can feel like, oh, I just had an unexplainable feeling, an intuition, I predicted the future. And yes, it is intuition, but the way it was working is you were picking up on all these little details in your friend's relationship. So your intuition says, based on the existing patterns that we already know about relationships, we're guessing a breakup is coming soon. And you might not even be aware of all that happening until that intuitive hunch enters your brain. Number 8, you feel the need to know how other people feel. So as mentioned before, INFJs are feelers, and they are the type of feeler who wants to know what everyone else is feeling. Not just emotional, but how do you feel about that toaster you bought? Do you like it? Do you love it? INFJs might satisfy this need to know how other people feel by directly asking them, or they might sit back and just try to read the other person. This is why INFJs are said to be adept at reading others and picking up on how they feel. It's because INFJs feel like they need to know. And sometimes just watching how people act is easier than directly asking them. You pair that up with their intuition and ability to put together patterns, and you've got someone who is always trying to guess at how everyone else feels. Number 9, you care more about the meanings of things than the facts. One thing about intuitives is that they prefer to look more at the bigger picture than the actual details. This can also mean they look at the abstract meaning of something before they look at the facts. INFJs are particularly out of balance when it comes to this, so they are heavily dependent on using intuition to see patterns, to understand the meanings of things, to get how they work generally, and the facts and what is concrete is totally secondary. An example of this is that INFJs don't typically give good examples. They will just say, this is how this thing is from a broad perspective, and no examples, unless you really press them and make them think for a while. If you ever want to mess with an INFJ, ask them for examples when they're trying to explain something. It's the hardest part of making these videos. Number 10, the concrete world is not that important to you. Related to the last point, INFJs are very much in their head all the time. Reality isn't happening so much in the outside world, but in my inner understanding of the outside world. So INFJs just don't value the outside physical world very much. It kind of just gets in the way. For INFJs, it might be an extra struggle to take care of your body, to eat right and exercise. INFJs can also get extra overwhelmed by too much sensory stuff going on. It's just too much to take in and process. Now, to talk about the INFJ being the rarest personality type, where does that come from? And does it really matter? This statistic comes from the MBTI Manual, which actually has a lot of statistics about type. It says that INFJs are the least common type, making up 1.5% of the population. However, if you look at this chart, there are 6 of the 16 types that make up less than 3.5% of the population each. And even the most common type is only 13% of the population. So I would suggest not getting too caught up in this whole rarity aspect of INFJs. Who even knows how accurate the statistics are? The whole rarity thing is really just for marketing purposes, if we're getting real here. The important thing to realize is that even if you feel weird and like nobody can relate to you and you're all alone, there are people out there going through the exact same things as you, feeling and thinking the same way. You're not alone, and you're not broken somehow. You have something unique to offer the world. Don't forget that. Check out this video about INFJs next, and until next time, stay cool and attractive. I'm gonna hang out, see if you click that video.